Okay, everybody, we're going to start now in a two-part series about the technical deep dive options within ITMS 8.1 as well as Go Solution Suite 3.2. Again, it's a two-part. We'll do the first hour right now, break for lunch, of course, and then continue after lunch. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? We're going to look at the Symantec Management Platform core enhancements, changes, and options that have been put in. Then go into the ITMS product integration, so talking about things like the SEP integration, CCS, as well as the Amazon Cloud options. ITMS solution enhancements, so we'll be talking obviously about patch management, software management, asset, etc. And then we'll end with the Go Solution Suite 3.2 enhancements. Okay, so this is a highly technical presentation, not a lot of marketing or sales pitches. It's strictly those technical bits and pieces that have absolutely enhanced parts of the solutions, as well as changes to the UI, as well as other gears that run in the background. Okay, so get ready for that. This is the geeky part. Okay, so we'll start with the main things. Operating system support. So these are the changes in the operating system support, all crunched into one slide. Okay, you obviously can read the product matrix or product operating system matrix. There's quite a few documents out there that show you every single operating system that's supported. But we'll start with these. So right now we've got the CMDB database support for 2012 SP3, 2014 SP2, as well as SQL Server 2016. So these are the options you can install your CMDB or your database on. Site server support for 2016, as well as Windows 10 anniversary update. So feel free to use those operating systems as site servers within the organization. And then we have a whole bunch here. I won't go through each one of them, but some of the main ones, obviously Windows Server 2016 agent support. CentOS, that's a new one, of course. How many people use CentOS for upgrading? Excellent. Okay, so this is our platform support matrix. It's been around for a very long time. It does get updated on a regular basis, so please visit this whenever you're thinking of upgrading your systems as well as new installs. Okay, the Symantec Installation Manager, there's a few enhancements to that, or a few changes. First one you'll notice is that the performance is increased by at least 20%. So it is faster in both getting the product listings in, getting the MSIs downloaded, etc. Okay, the database configuration has moved from the console, if you remember going into settings, all settings, notification server, and database settings. It's now been moved into the SIM. And one of the main reasons is for troubleshooting. So all of the components that work to check your database, make sure that everything's configured, they're all in SIM anyway. So it makes sense to go in there, be able to go run the SIM, and be able to do troubleshooting in one spot. Okay, so you'll notice that they're in the console now, or in SIM. Full repair. So the full repair options, as well as some of the MSI options, are in a single view inside of the Symantec Installation Manager now. So you can do the full repair, and it's actually pretty comprehensive. You'll see by the comments there, or the listing there, that you can do everything from the full repair, checks the database, make sure everything's in place before it'll just go out and do an MSI repair, let's say, on everything. Okay, we also have the repair of MSIs and reconfiguration. So instead of going into a certain part of SIM like you did in the past, you can go in one place, repair a single MSI or solution or suite itself, or get down there and just reconfigure it. So instead of doing a full repair on an MSI, which literally goes through the full installation, you can pick certain components and change them on the fly. Okay, and we've also saved some space by just removing some of the links. You'll notice that in the past SIM, it's had a whole bunch of blue links all throughout it. You'll see these little information bubbles that are actually more comprehensive now. So we replace the links with these, so you can get the information you need right at that time. Okay, XML signing. So all of our product listings, you know, the PLs that we pull for our full product listing, they're actually signed XML. So there's a little bit more security and safety to it, and it'll warn you that the PL that's coming in or what you chose isn't from an authorized site or an authorized source. Okay, another big feature that Damon mentioned, I'm sure, Mac OS profile management. Okay, so the technical side of this, we all know what it was, how it was presented. It's basically going to distribute Mac OS profiles. In this case here, we'll look at it in a little more technical detail. Okay, so this allows you to take import Mac configurations and basically enforce them across your organization. Now, it's not an all or nothing thing. You can get very granular with it, of course. Okay, so this allows you to configure settings like email, network settings, etc. Okay, we have granular targeting. So if you know anything about our filters and targets, because we can get very, very granular down to literally a small group of computers in your large organization, this allows us to get pinpoint profiles and distribute them to multiple groups, let's say. Okay, so we can also run reports based on them. There are a few new reports that have been brought in. Obviously, if we have a new feature, we're going to write a report for it to show you what the status is of delivery, as well as the status of where and when they were installed on each Mac. Okay, so if a profile gets removed, so we've distributed it out to many, many Macs. If a profile gets removed, somebody's smart and they figure out how to get rid of this profile that's enforcing your network settings and so on. If you know anything about our policies, we have compliance in our policies. So if you set that compliance to say if it's not there and you check every hour, it's just going to keep reinstalling that profile, right? So it uses the same operations, the same methods that we see in our Windows, Linux, and other policies. Okay, so it's all basically unified. Okay, so for our initial version, we're supporting device profiles only. Okay, so we're looking at other ways of distributing different types of profiles, but for now, the initial release of 8.1, it'll be device type profiles only. Okay, so for more information, and again, you'll have copies of these slides, I believe it's how-to 125782. How's that for an easy link? Okay, so this explains the entire process. It's a whole how-to article that shows you how to implement it, what use cases and so on would be used. Okay, so how does it work? How do we create one? It's actually quite simple because you're very familiar with how to make basically policies and how to enforce them. Okay, so first thing you need is a utility. So you're going to generate a .mobile config file, and you use things like the macOS Server Profile Manager, or you can also use the Apple Configurator 2. Now these are obviously available for download. If you consult the how-to guide, or I believe it's in one of our user guides, you'll be able to download these utilities. Okay, so what you do is you make that file and you transfer it to your notification server. Get the MS-config file, put it in a secure place on your notification server, and then you're going to create a Mac OS profile policy. So in this case, I believe you go into the console. Okay, you create that policy. There's actually a menu item. It's literally right-click New OS Profile Policy. Okay, once you make that, you upload it with a button straight on that user interface. That brings in the mobile config file. You'll see the listing of the configuration that just came in. So it's good for checking that if you know that it's setting, let's say, network and device properties, that it actually lists it here in the policy before you distribute it. Okay, then you can export the profile if you want to another notification server. So let's say you have disparate systems, separately managed notification servers. You just export it out, give it to the other team member. They'll bring it into a notification server, and you'll be able to deploy from there. Okay, so then you choose your target, just like any other policy. What is your target? Okay, so once you choose that, it will, once you enable it and save the changes, it distributes it straight out. Okay, so what does it do from this point? So we've got the profile in there, we have the policy set, we have our target set, and we've enabled it. It's a very simple process. It's no different than setting a policy up for any other thing, like software patch, etc. Okay, so the first thing it does is obviously it gets pushed to the clients. The clients enforce the the mobile config file. Our policy framework, of course, ensures that it stays installed because we're looking at the compliance setting of the policy. If we say check every 5 minutes, 24 hours a day, it's going to check that it's enforced or it's installed. Okay, and if somebody deletes it, it just reinstalls it. And in the end, you can check reports on the status of it, who has what policy, when it was applied, amongst other features. Okay, so it's a very simple concept, but it's really, really useful if you want to enforce policies throughout your Macs in the organization. Okay, automation policies and the security role manager. So we're looking at two separate parts of the UI now. The automation policies, if you've worked with these in the past, or sorry, the security role manager policies, if you've worked in the security role manager, you've probably noticed it's been the same for quite a number of years, right? It's sometimes difficult to find certain items because there are literally thousands of them. Items, resources, reports, parts of the menu. There's thousands of things in there. So we came up with a method to make it easier to work within it. Okay, so the first thing we're looking at is we basically added some search functionality. Okay, enhanced views and search functionality. What we're looking at there is the ability to see it in a different light. Be able to search each one of those items and be able to call them up. Okay, we also have a middle pane now for the security role manager, and it's an extended layout of what you see on the first pane or the left pane. You select something in the left, it opens up a middle pane, gives you a little more information on each. Okay, so the automations policy page, this again, if you know what this is where we set automation policies to automatically notify based on certain criteria, and do things like send an email if something appears in a report, or if you're out of compliance by 10%, send an email or do other actions. So what we've done is we've made it easier for you to find the items that are on, enabled, okay? So they're in bold now, okay? So it's much easier to see them clearly. Okay, there's new system messages that were added. Okay, and we also have the ability to override, we have override and filter options for these system messages. Okay, not huge changes, but if you think about it, if you have thousands of automation policies, it's really hard to see them if they're all not bolded, right? Or if there isn't a little green indicator, right? So definitely take a look at those two consoles. They have been reworked. Okay, site management page. So within site management, if you set up a lot of site servers, package servers, task servers, monitor servers, and so on, you might notice that you're always consulting, let's say, Symantec Connect, the planning and implementation guide, or otherwise, to find out exactly what is the minimum requirement for a package server. Do I need IIS? Do I need this enabled? If you've been working it for years, or working in this console for years, you probably know this by second nature. But there are those times where you just enable the package server or the task service, and it goes out and you're wondering, why aren't I getting tasks sent? Why aren't I getting packages? We now have the ability to see before we send. Okay, so we can see if there's any conflicts, if there's any missing components. So how do we do it? Obviously, we have the inventory of that machine. Does it have IIS 7? Does it have this enabled? Is it HTTPS? Whatever. It has that information. So now it's basically doing a diagnostic before you send out the command to become a certain site service. Okay, so we can clearly see that if we right-click on that service that we're about to enable, we'll actually get more information. Okay, going through a little bit of an extension of that, we have advanced detection of the missing prerequisites. So even though it told you you need IIS 7 and so on, this is going to tell you in a box here that you've got this, you've got that, but you don't have this, right? So it's going to tell you right away before you actually turn it on. Okay, so at that point you can go to the target server, enable those options, turn on IIS 7, etc., and get it working. Okay, so the right-click menu, it works just like the other parts of the console. So if you're in the site manager and you right-click on an SMP, or let's say a site server or package server, you don't get the options. It's just basically nothing comes up. So now if you look at this picture here, you're seeing that it actually shows you the standard right-click options that are available for that endpoint. Okay, if you have task servers, or site servers with task services on them, if you're doing, let's say, a migration or an upgrade, it would be nice to know if the task servers out there don't have the right version. If you know if you've ever seen a mismatched version of task servers between two versions, it doesn't exactly work properly, right? Obviously the task can't be passed and so on. So you have to make sure that the task servers are at the same level. This will show you in the site manager that basically it'll go red and say that this one is not a supported configuration and it needs to be updated. Okay. All right, so let's look at the task server service itself. So it now works with Windows Server 2016. So again, you can make them site servers with task services. Okay, who knows what this table is, right? So task instances. I know this is very geeky, but if you know anything about this table, it is massive. Every task you ever did with all of its statuses and everything else is in this massive table. So in 8.1, what we've done is we've split it into two. Because what we realize from customers like yourself is that they only want certain types of status indicators, like is it done or not, right? Not all of the granular information we provide. So we've split it into two tables. One's called task instances completed, task instances incomplete, right? Is it done or not, right? So in this case, you'll find that one of the tables is very small, but it's the most important one to you, versus the other one that's a larger table, but it just relays information on those endpoints that have a problem. Okay, so, all right, so we have two different tables. Now, you're going to ask yourself, well, I just wrote a whole bunch of reports, and it uses the task instances data table. What am I going to do? Well, we thought of that too. We're smart here. We made a view. Okay, so the view is named task instances. So whatever report you've already made for task instances, it will definitely work going forward. So no incompatibility issues, no bad SQL report errors and stuff like that. Okay, so we've also disabled by default all of the task-related services in IIS or in our web services, okay? For obvious reasons, right? So we don't want anonymous access or unauthorized access for these websites. Okay, this is just in our security analysis of our software, right? It's a best practice to do that. Okay, merge support for deployment tasks. So if you've noticed, when we have merged machines, if you work with deployment solution 8.0 or earlier, when you create a merged machine, tasks sometimes don't work the way you expect them, right? So I've made a merged machine or I've brought in a new one. I'm not able to basically execute something on it. So what we've done is we've created an option in the NS configurator that allows us to prevent hanging of any job on a merged computer, as well as if it's missing. Okay, so if the task goes missing when you look at that computer, this option will resolve that. Okay, it might be more of a rare situation for most, but at least you know we have it now. Okay, so this makes it also makes a new SQL table called Task Management Merges that you can access to see what's going on. Okay, we've added a few advanced settings. Okay, so again, NS configurator, this is going in behind the scenes and turning on certain options. So task server advanced settings allowed. What you'll see is if you look at the task, which one is this? The task server settings, you'll notice that there's only a few options there. If you enable this in the NS configurator, it will expand all the options. And as you can see, it's quite granular in the bottom section of this pane, right? So you can get right down to ports and everything else. What we've added here is the ability to limit the clients to register to specific task servers. Okay, so we could actually put a real limit on them, as well as you can now put HTTPS addresses in the host name, or sorry, the preferred host name. In the past, it was just a kind of a bug where if you put a server in there, it was HTTPS, it wouldn't save the setting. Okay, so that's more of a bug fix. Okay, cleanup task data, task configuration. Okay, so the cleanup task data, we know it's a purging report. So it basically goes through, it finds the millions and millions of tasks, and it basically deletes them on a specific date and time. Okay, so you might have this set, purge all events after 6 months. You may never purge it because you might have auditing policies and so on. Okay, so what happens is when you run this task, it literally gets rid of everything, right, within that certain criteria. What we've done is instead of deleting all of the records that you told it to, we can now get a little more granular. We can basically set this one setting that's called minimum time period to keep task instances summaries. Okay, it's a little box there, and you could choose the time in which to keep the top level, or sorry, the top few records that are in there based on this criteria. So in this case, we might set it, and it'll delete everything past the date you choose. Okay, so it keeps all the current stuff in there. Okay, because a purge, if you remember anything, purge is absolute. Unless you got a backup of your database, if you tell it to purge everything, it will. This just allows you to keep a specific amount in your database. Told you there are a lot of settings here. Okay, so package server assignments. So what you can do now is if you go into the package view, so this is in the organizational views and groups, and you choose packages down the hierarchy, I can choose multiple packages and go right click, assign to a site server. So I can go specifically assign them. That's one option. We've also reworked the naming and the function of the package server options. Okay, if you remember the long settings we used to have, we've simplified the wording and the function of what they do. So if you go and you assign things to package servers now, if it's whether it's a policy setting or just something on a piece of software, we now have these options. Obviously, all package servers, right? We've had that for a while. We've got package servers individually, package servers by site, or what we've always known, package servers automatically with manual pre-staging. Okay, so don't be surprised if you see the change in the console. Okay, by default, all packages are assigned to all site servers. So just so you know, if you make a new software or managed software delivery policy, you will have it delivered to all package servers. Okay, so watch that if you don't want that to happen. Okay, and it also shows you basically the view will change depending on what you chose. So if you choose assign all site servers, it gives you only a list of all the site servers. The other way, obviously, is if you assign it to site servers, it just shows you these site servers. Okay, so a few changes in package server assignment. Okay, now we get really deep. Client task agent. Okay, so we've got the option now to not allow sleep mode on anything with an agent. Right, so that could be a big thing for you if you don't want it to stop in the middle of a major delivery or a patch or things like that. So we'll find it in two places. So under Task Agent Settings, under the Global Settings, you'll see this little box here that basically allows you or tells you not to turn it off or have it go into sleep mode. You'll also find it in the advanced options of any task. So it doesn't matter what the task is, press the advanced button in that task, and you now have the ability to, down at the task level, tell it not to allow it to go into sleep for just that task. So it doesn't have to be a all or nothing option. It can go right down to a single task. Okay? How many people would use something like that for, prevent sleep mode? It's kind of important to get that WannaCry, whatever virus patch, right? All right. Okay, so deferred dialog box. We've done some redesign of that box. So this is basically saying allow the user to defer this option for a certain amount of time. It also gives you settings like how many times to defer it and how often. So what we've done is we redesigned it because there were some multiple stability and usability issues with it. Okay, the client task agent, if you've worked this closely with the agents themselves, then we've made a few changes. We've merged some of the agent plugins for ease of deployment. Okay, so the first thing is we've consolidated it, and it deploys only to the relevant client. So we don't have this mixture of 32-bit and 64. The client that gets deployed is the same client, okay? It just knows whether to put the 32-bit or the 64 down. You'll find that the base task handler plugin, that's been merged into the base task client itself. So we don't see two of them anymore. And when we deploy to 64-bit OSs, it actually will just show you the one line. It's not going to show you the two versions of that client task handler. Okay, UI enhancements in task. So big thing is search, huge. Okay, I've been waiting for this one for 10 years. I thought I'd get applause for this. So you're in the tasks, there you go, yay. Oh, thank you to Max, thanks Max. So yes, if you're not familiar with the task view, there are literally hundreds of tasks, right? And you want to just go in there, well, where's that run script? R-U-N. I just want to do a search. So obviously you can see now we can search the tasks. Okay, we can select multiple tasks now. So instead of going, okay, I got a 50 task job to do, 1, yes, okay, 2, yes, okay, I could choose all the tasks I need and say okay, and off they go into your task. Okay, there's a new client status, client task status details report. So this gives you the status of all the tasks that are listed in your organization. It's filterable, of course, so you can watch for that. Okay, we could also double click it, and it'll give us granular detail on that specific task by the actual machines that it ran on. Okay, target selector for policies and tasks. So we now have the ability to choose the recent targets that you've been using. So if you're doing a massive job and you're creating a whole bunch of items, this will allow you to just look at a list of most recent used ones. Because if you know anything about our targets, there's hundreds, right? Okay, so now I can just say, oh, well, I used that last one on a certain software management policy. Okay, we can also easily define the targets, much more easily than in the past, where we can actually get granular on what we choose about it. Okay, so we can search for them, of course, find the task itself, or sorry, the target itself. Okay, and any of them that are saved, we can obviously edit. So one of the additional items we've got here is we can now pretend we're a certain scope. So if you know anything about scoping a target, you only see what you're allowed to see, right? But if you're an administrator, wouldn't it be nice to have a target selector that says, I want to choose what the, let's say, level 1 worker security role would see, right? So I can go in here and I could choose that scope target, and I could see exactly what they would see in that case, right? Okay, so again, I could choose the role that I need, and that would show me the results within that target itself. And I could save it as that security role. Okay, user guide documentation. So what you're going to notice in the next little while, probably in the next 6 months or so, is that we've decided to go with a mind maps approach for user guides. So if you know anything about our user guides, back in the day, we had 700-page patch management manuals and things like that. Yes, there was a lot of information, but you literally had to go through the table of contents and figure out what you wanted to do. So now we've got this mind maps approach. You're probably familiar with that as the, well, I think mind maps, there's Xmind and a couple other companies that have this technology. So what you can do is you can go into the documentation library in the console, and you can look at any of them that are listed as mind maps. So let's say the ITMS management guide. Okay, so what does it look like? They're based on use cases. So think about it now. What do I want to do? So I'm in the inventory solution guide. I want to know, how do I do hardware inventory? How do I gather all the software on a machine or on a Linux machine? So now what you can do is you can click on the main uses, everything from install to configure to running certain things, and go through some of the subjects. And as it applies to you, it'll get you down to the point where you want to actually get to the, let's say, the technical article. It could be something from, let's say, YouTube video, or some kind of a diagram. So there's all sorts of links in there that allow you to walk through all of these. Okay, so the standard user guides are available for now, obviously, but there's just another way of doing it. Okay, and those are found at Doc 9706, and I believe right now they've got a couple of them already done in mind maps. But you can look for more in the future. All right, and with that, we'll have Tomas come up. And obviously, if you have any questions on any of those features, just come and find me anywhere. Thank you.
Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me? Okay, good, good. My name is Tomas Chinchilla. I'm in product management with Symantec. Been here for about 7 years. A lot of you, not a lot of faces here, and you guys probably know me. 7 years with Symantec in the capacity of product management, regional product management, basically very customer focused and facing, understanding your challenges, knowing how you use the solutions, what you like, what you don't like, right, and bringing those and feeding it back to PM. But yeah, I used to be a client, actually. I used to be the manager of endpoint management for SunTrust Banks, large bank in the southeast of the US, about 65,000 endpoints. So I've been there, done that, know the pains and know the blessings of the solution. So one of the things that I'll be talking here about today, I'll be covering several subjects. One is platform integrations, at a relatively high level. If you guys want any more technical details, please feel free to ask questions. I like to make my presentations a little bit dynamic so that I don't kill you by slides type thing. And then later on, I'll be covering other topics. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the things that Damon mentioned earlier was our SEP agent health integration. Again, if you look at some of the challenges in the industry today, right, that we have from a Symantec perspective, is we have a great platform, right? We have ITMS, which basically captures inventory about every single aspect of your endpoint, whether it's software, hardware, and things like that. And then we have another great solution, which is our Symantec Endpoint Protection Engine, right? Our SEP. So what about the integrations of both of those platforms, right? One of the things that we are trying to achieve from that perspective. So if you look at challenges, obviously is that visibility, right? Difficulty of seeing all that data consolidated in a single platform to see, okay, what are my agents looking like, right? What are my versions out there? What are my definition files out there? Are the agents okay, right? What do I do in terms of targeting upgrades, remediation processes? I got a platform that can't do that, right? But why am I not using or taking advantage of that platform in order to do that, right? And again, it touches into the whole remediation use case. From that perspective, we introduce in the platform our SEP agent, basically integration component that deals with the health assessment of this platform, basically. Ideally, we would have loved to do a whole lot more, but in the time that we had, we managed to just integrate into the SEP agent to capture things from an inventory perspective, detail information about the agent versions, the agent health, the definition files and things of that nature, while at the same time provided you with additional enhanced reporting within the platform that lets you target those in order for you to, for example, let's say that I want to see how many agents are in SEP 14, right? And then you can basically run your filter over here, for example. You can run your filters in the computer management window and start filtering by that. And I don't know how many of you are aware of what we did with filtering and reporting on 8.1. One of the big things that we did was that we had this love-hate relation with our report builder in ITMS. I can see some people chuckling already. So, and then, of course, we're trying to work through, the people that love it are the people that are very inclined to write SQL reporting manually and things like that. And then we had the other side of the fence, which are the folks that don't know a whole lot about SQL writing. And they were the ones that we're not in love with that. And then I had a couple of customers come in and say, but you already have something very powerful. Why are you not using that? And I was like, what are you talking about? Is the filter builder in your console. You can basically go to all computers, write you a filter, and you can look for pretty much any information that you want. You're just not giving us the opportunity to save as a report and use it as a report, just a filter. So thanks to our engineering team, we went back and we did that. Now you have the ability to take anything you build within that filter creator, so to speak, and save it as a report, whether it's dynamic, whether it's static, and you can use not only the information that is there, but you can use additional data classes. Back on topic, one of the things that we did then is we're providing you now capabilities and data classes around our SEP integration, so you now can look for SEP versions, health status of that agent, definition files, and things of that nature, right? Look at it by the product name, the version, whether it's correctly installed, whether it's managed, and if it's managed, what server details, what server is that device connected to from a management perspective, right, from a SEP perspective. So we can give you all that. You can save it as a report, and let's say, show me devices that are less than, right, and just say 14. It will give you a list of those devices that have not been upgraded to the latest and greatest version of that platform. And then because you can now save it as a target, as a filter, as a report, you can now target any device that is not met that criteria for a SEP upgrade or a SEP remediation, right, the agent. Does that make sense so far? Yeah, so that's one of the things, obviously, that we did with that. And again, back to the reporting and the ability to have a consolidated view of your environment when it comes to that endpoint, the security posture of that endpoint, whether it's ITMS, software, patching, and also your SEP protection, okay? All right, moving forward. This gives you full visibility of your agent status. This gives you accurate reporting on your environment from a compliance perspective. And basically, it gives you a lot of power when it comes to remediation options within the console because you now can set those things as policies, standing policies. Yes, ma'am?
Are you taking questions?
Sure, why not?
So this doesn't get rid of the need for the second.
No, ma'am, not today. Not today. You still need to have your SEPM infrastructure. Exactly. Reporting just gives you extended capabilities in terms of remediation. Because let's face it, a lot of us, and you know, I can tell you, I've been to a lot of your organizations throughout the years, right? And in reality, a lot of remediations for the SEP agents. This thing is noisy. Sorry, guys. A lot of the remediation for your SEP agents is really taken care of by the operations team, the Altiris team, basically, right? Is, hey, we got a couple SEP, we need to remediate. Can you send this upgrades out there, right? In this way, not only do they get that visibility from a management perspective, or the security team, right, can look at what's pending, but you actually can do the remediation. You can base it off of policies, right, obviously. Make sense? Ideally, the ultimate goal is to do that integration. You know, so that's the ultimate goal there. Not yet. Okay? Yes, sir.
Can you push down the actual virus definition?
Natively, no, you cannot push the native, but natively, no, you can. But in the case of emergencies, you can actually package it and send it out with ITMS. I mean, several customers do that, right, in emergency situations. And now with the advent of cloud-enabled management, then yes. Okay? All right, moving forward. As you heard Damon said earlier, another big step that we're taking in terms of Symantec ITMS, there is a new solution called Control and Compliance Suite, basically CCS, which is what gives you that ability, especially on the server side of the house, right, the server platforms, right, gives you that ability to run compliance reports against PCI, HIPAA, things like that, right, and it's full on. The integration level at this point with our ITMS infrastructure is at the patch level. That's how we started. That's how we're approaching it at this point, right? We're basically, as you can see here in the back, you know, going back a little bit, right? It gives you that, if you look at the challenges today, you look at the complex ticketing process that you have today. Let's say that you run that compliance reporting against that, and then the logging the tickets, the automation processes, and so there's a lot of challenges that you run into from an end-to-end remediation perspective. And if I go forward here for a second, you can see how we integrated it at the patch compliance level. So where, let's just say, select a check. Let's say I'm going to select for PCI compliance, okay? And I'm going to select, you know, target this group of servers. It runs the compliance reported. Because we are checking for patch compliance, then you can say, okay, I'm going to check the compliance against that policy or that one patch or that one thing, right, that you're looking for. As soon as it runs that compliance scan, it finds all of the vulnerable assets, right, the assets that are not compliant with that policy, and it automatically triggers the automatic logging of tickets, and you'll see this on the next screen. So as Damon mentioned before, we have integrations with ServiceNow. You can do it with the Arch Service solution and others, right, where you can automate the opening basically of tickets. Once a ticket is reviewed by an administrator and says, yes, we approve the execution of the remediation of this policy, then everything else happens on the back end, right? Once it's executed, CCS connects to patch management or Altiris patch management and basically takes care of the full remediation, and it gives you full-on auditing report. Now, with that said, I know this is very high level. There is a presentation today at the end of the day where this will go basically in depth, and they can basically show you everything that we're discussing here. All right. Again, automated ticketing, automated remediation, and then closed loop remediation. Cool. Questions so far?
And it doesn't have to be service desk, it could be remedy or something else?
Yes, so you can integrate right now ServiceNow, our own, and others, yeah. Okay. All right. AWS, so who today, in the audience here, who's thinking about cloud? Who's got servers in the cloud today, actively? Okay. Who's ever thought about putting ITMS on the cloud? Okay, that's good, awesome. So guys, today, as Damon mentioned earlier, we have ITMS available as a one-click implementation on the marketplace in AWS. One thing to mention though, today certified, we got 8.0 certified, and 8.1 is coming here within the, let's say the summer, during the summer period. 8.1 will be certified. This implementation of AWS serves multiple purposes, right? It allows you to move all your workloads to the cloud. So say, I no longer want to have to manage infrastructures. I no longer want to have to manage servers or be asking for budget for servers, additional hardware, or deal with storage, right? I just want to pay for a service, throw it in the cloud. All I have to do is go and manage, right? Manage my endpoints and do everything. So there's multiple approaches to that. There is smaller size businesses that are looking to go this route. And by the way, this is not a new thing for us in ITMS. We actually have partners out there today that have been doing this for years. They have instantiations of ITMS on the cloud on services like AWS, Azure, and things like that, right? So this is nothing new. This is our Symantec branded, basically our solution out there, one-click implementation. It accelerates implementations and things like that. And I believe the limitation today is up to 5,000 endpoints on the cloud, and then again, you can grow that as needed. But again, moving forward, so there are multiple use cases for ITMS in the cloud. There is companies that want to do just full ITMS on cloud, everything, where you can have your server in AWS. You can have cloud-enabled management enable on AWS and basically do everything from there. There is a second use case where a customers want to run a hybrid approach, right? They want to be able to put ITMS on the cloud, but yet continue to manage devices internally in their environments. At that point, this is what you see, the VPC, the customer gateway comes into play. It allows you to basically connect your environments. Most of you who have done that already, you guys know how that works, right? Where your cloud instantiation looks just like an extension of your network, right? You can have ITMS over there. You can manage all of your servers that are already there in AWS, as well as your internal environment here. And then, with that, then you can extend it with cloud-enabled management so that you can manage all your mobile workforce. Does that make sense? Any questions about this so far? Go ahead.
In any of those scenarios, is this hosted like a SAS, or would we still be doing the upgrades to the platform?
You still be doing, and I have Max here to help me with that.
We're not hosting that.
No, we're not hosting it. Basically, when we do the AWS implementation, it's one-click implementation of ITMS, you still controlling.
Still do all the upgrades and everything the same way?
And that's the part that, yes. We've had this discussion in the past to whether we can do the upgrades, but right now you control your own upgrades. And if you let me go here in the next couple of slides, I'll go back to this. Here is the model, right? The largest opportunity here is the hybrid approach, right? Where you guys want to continue to manage everything the way you do today. You just want to move the workload to the cloud, right? You don't want to worry about hardware upgrades. You don't want to worry about cost of storage and things like that. You just want to pay for the service, right? So the hybrid approach is the one that most people would look for. Licensing model continues to be bring your own license, so it stays the same. You still own your licenses. You just bring them over to that instantiation. And obviously, you have all the capabilities and such. The metering, again, the way it is today, it's per node, right? Number of licenses per node. Okay, does that make sense so far? Anybody else had a question? No? All right. So let me go back here for a sec. So, considerations. If you want to do SIEM, basically the manage all the infrastructure is mostly in AWS. And when you see that asterisk there, basically it has to do except for on-prem site servers initially. Now remember, one of the use cases of cloud-enabled management is not only to continue to have full visibility into your assets that are moving in and out of your network, but you also can use cloud-enabled management to manage environments outside of your network. So let's say that you have an office in a remote location, and that office has multiple devices, 10, 20 devices, 100 devices, right? But they're not connected to your MPLS cloud, okay? So that's a true remote location, and everybody's VPNing in, right, from that location. And we have multiple customers that do that. Anytime you distribute a software update, every time you distribute patches, that's 20, 30, 40 connections coming in through VPN to download the same file. So one of the things that we did with cloud-enabled management, now we have that use case where you can actually place what we call a remote site server. You can take a site server, put it in that location, and that site server connects no different than any client connected through SIEM, right? They connect through SIEM, through SSL, through certificates and everything. Back in the console, you define what is a remote site. And you say, this is remote site A, and this is my site server for that site and my devices within that site. Then basically what happens there, now everybody gets their policy, and when you're distributing an update, all the guys go, hey, the 20 of us need that upgrade. They go to the SMP, and the SMP says, yeah, you got a site server located there, wait until he's done with the download, and then everybody pull locally. That file goes down once, instead of 20, 50 times, 100 times, right? So that's one of the advantages there. So when we say here, management and infrastructure in AWS is mostly in AWS, except for those cases where you have a remote site server serving a local device. Does that make sense so far? Okay? Yes, sir.
On that one, so for the remote site server, if the clients go from that location back to their infrastructure, so a larger environment, do the agents know that, or do we assign them it should just go through cloud?
So do remember, and this is the tricky part. This ties directly into one of the presentations that is happening later. So we'll answer that question again, but I'll give you the quick overview over there. Remember, every time you turn a device into cloud-enabled management, it doesn't preclude it from continuing to do its operations in a normal way. All you're saying is you're tying something out that is remote. Once that client comes in, then he's in. He's talking to the SMP. He can get packages locally and things like that. So it's not directly hardwired tied to that location, if that makes sense, right? The agent will realize that he can connect to the SMP directly, and then off he goes, right? CEM only gets active when it cannot reach out to the SMP directly. Hopefully that makes sense. Most of you have done some version of cloud-enabled management at this point, but that's how it works. Does that answer your question? Okay, so endpoints are both on-prem as well as outside the perimeter. Subset of core ITMS capabilities, obviously supported by CEM, is acceptable. What we mean by that is cloud-enabled management. It supports features like full-on hardware and software, inventory, things like that, software distribution, patch management, tasks, not real-time, but tasks, right? And things like that, right? And we don't support things like today, like deployment solution, right? And monitoring solution and things like that. Those are not officially supported today due to the nature of the connectivity, right? HTTPS, SSL, client initiates connectivity, okay? And we'll talk about that in our presentation later on. And then when you add the VPC capability for your organization, let's say that you implemented ITMS in the cloud, you want to bridge your instantiation of the cloud to your on-prem network, so it's all one and the same. Then you have the full spectrum of ITMS capabilities available to you, except for those devices that are SIEM, right? I've already mentioned those limitations. Any questions on this?
You said you're talking about 5,000 clients is the upper limit for this?
For the AWS stuff today, yes. Yes. We're looking to increase that, but there's a slew of additional testing that has to take place. Yes, sir.
So can you move your entire infrastructure to AWS site servers and notification server out of your bandwidth?
Correct.
You didn't necessarily have a site server on campus.
You could use this.
Deploy your software and tasks and everything.
Yes. Yes, you can, obviously, but you always have to try. You always have to do your best to understand your use case, right? Yes, you can move everything to AWS. Am I going to have direct connectivity to it? Am I not? Is everything going to be strictly SIEM at that point? Then understand the limitations of if everything is totally SIEM, then you're going to probably want to have remote site servers in your location for software distribution. So is the reverse applies as well, right? So yes, so you got to play with your design, but yes, you can move all of your workloads to the cloud at that point, assuming that you're within that threshold of the number of endpoints supported. Okay? Any additional questions on the matter? Go ahead.
We talked earlier about peer-to-peer downloads.
Mhm.
I think you mentioned, or someone had mentioned that works in CM as well. So if you were in a cloud environment with CM attached agents, they can still talk to each other?
If they're in a remote location together, yes. Remember, and again, this is one of the topics that I'll cover later on this same presentation in part 2. We'll cover P2P in detail technically. But yes, the short answer is yes. If they're on the same location, yes. If they're not, then it won't cross over that threshold. Okay?
So why would you not just link all of your agents? What is the reason to not?
Your use case, your particular use case. I mean, you might be able to do that. We got customers that run certain environments directly, strictly through SIEM, right? Again, it comes down to deployment solution, monitoring solution. Do you have a need for those? And if you do, then of course there are ways to get creative with doing that. It's not out of the box, but there are ways that customers have made it work, right? But officially, you cannot do those things today with the solution. So nothing is precluding you from doing it. You can, right? It's just a matter of what's your use case, what's your need in your organization. But absolutely. I mean, so long as you architect it properly, depending on the number of endpoints, just keep this in mind, right? Depending on the number of endpoints that you have, each gateway can support up to 3,000 to 3,500 concurrent connections. So always keep that in mind, right? When you're doing this from a design perspective. Okay? And again, I don't want to dig too deep in SIEM because I know we have another presentation. I'm stealing the thunder of that presentation. So anyways, there's a lot of content on it. So you trust me that you'll love it. All right. With that said, moving on. We covered that. I guess we did the Q&A. Any additional questions that don't go too deep into SIEM because we're doing one, so I encourage you all to attend that one, right? And you're talking to the two guys that do this day in and day out. So, yes? So you're talking true DR. Is that what you're talking? That conversation has come over many times. We've actually have a significant document online that talks about DR capabilities. The native DR that you're looking for, as I understand it, is not there today. You need to follow the guidance. There's a document that does disaster recovery in ITMS. Basically, you can have a hot and sort of a cold standby, but you still need to have a copy of that database up to a specific point. And then, nowadays with all of the technologies and solutions that we've implemented within ITMS, if you look at our current migration status, which I'll talk about it later today, I think it's 4 o'clock, I have a presentation on 8.1 migration where we can move a copy of that database and upgrade it in place. But at this point, if you look at your DR infrastructure, take the copy of that database or constantly do those backups, bring up the new server, use server communication profiles, redirect, you're live. And then you can play with DNS settings. All of that is on the DR document that is posted online. Does that make sense? But the true DR capabilities you're looking for, like hot or hot-cold standby, where one fails, the other one takes over automatically, is not there yet. Hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, thanks. So does Altiris 8.1 give us the ability, so if we have a remote site that has an MPLS connection, where it can also, we can choose that we want it to go out on the internet, since it's a lot cheaper going that route than paying for the MPLS?
Today, no. That is a feature request that has been made not just by you, but by others already. And basically what, you guys understood that question, by the way? I know some of you did. It's basically nowadays you have what is it called? SW, Chris, I think you know the name. The SD1, right, where you can do the split, and you guys have requested that as well, where, at the cost of bandwidth today, right, a lot of corporations don't want to use that bandwidth for non-business stuff, like if you want to do patching, if you want to do direct downloads from vendors and things like that. So for the technology to be smart enough so where it says, oh, this is a patch content type download, I can go download it directly from the vendor. I'm going to take this path and go to my cheap internet connection, cable, call it whatever you want to do, and go directly there and download those files. We've had some today, and this is new information to me. We have today some customers who have managed to do that, but there are some customizations. But that is a feature request that is already in the system, in the works. I don't have an ETA for you, unfortunately, at this point, but it's something that we're already considering. Okay?
We do it in GSK with, I don't know the exact technical details, but I can find out for you if you want.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Good timing.
Draw.
Good time.
We do it at GSK with some firewall finagling and VP tunneling. If somebody wants some details, I can get you hooked up with somebody.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I was alluding to. We got customers that have done some customizations to make that happen. Okay. Well, guys, I can take one more question, and then I think it's time to break for lunch. Going once? Going twice? Sold. Thank you, guys. We'll see you at the flip of the hour.